Welcome to class 12 students. In biology, the very first unit is reproduction, and the very first chapter is reproduction in organisms. So first of all, we are going to understand about the meaning of reproduction. The term reproduction. Reproduction is one of the most important processes by which every living organisms makes a copy like itself. It is the mean of multiplication and perpetuation of the species because the older individuals of each species undergoes senescence and die. Clear? Now here we are using the term senescence. Senescence basically means the process of aging. Every living individual that has taken birth on this planet or on this earth has to die because each living individual has a specific lifespan. The term lifespan means the period from the birth of a living individual up to its natural death. And the lifespan of each individual greatly varies. Either it is a plant or animal. The plants generally have greater lifespan as comparison to the animals, and the lifespan of each individual mainly includes 4 stages. There are basically 4 stages in the lifespan of the living individuals, whether it is a plant or animal. Clear? And if we talk about humans, these 4 stages of lifespan are: the very first stage is juvenility, the second stage is maturity, the third stage is aging, and the final and the last stage, it is also called as senescence. You can say aging or senescence. And the final stage is death. So these 4 are the stages that are included in the lifespan. Now let's talk about these stages. The very first stage, that is juvenility. So juvenility is the early period of the lifespan from the time of the birth up to the stage when an organism develops capacity to reproduce. Clear? So juvenility basically includes, it becomes the period from the birth up to the time of maturity or the capacity to reproduce. This period is known as juvenility. The second period, that is maturity. So maturity is the period when the organism gains the tendency to reproduce, or when it starts reproducing. Okay. So maturity, when an organisms become sexually mature, when it is able to give rise to a new individual. Then the third period, aging or senescence, means the period when an organism or its body part, in case of aging or senescence, the individual start deteriorating. Deteriorating means when the body of the living individuals start undergoing the process of damage or destruction. And the last period of the lifespan is death, which means termination of the life. And all these changes are irreversible. Death causes reduction in the number of the individual of a population, and it is restored by the addition of new individuals through reproduction. Clear? So reproduction is not only production of a new copy like itself, but it is a mean for the survival of the population on the earth. Now let's talk about reproduction and lifespan and their correlation. Examples of the lifespan of an individual are, like, the microorganisms have a small lifespan of few minutes to few hours. The mayfly is having the smallest lifespan of only 24 hours. Then the cicada, an insect, is having a lifespan of 1 day. Similarly, we can take example of a dog, which is having a lifespan of about 20 years. And human being biologically have a lifespan of 60 years according to biology. Then parrot is having a lifespan of 140 years. So that means different individuals have different lifespans. Now let's conclude the reproduction and lifespan by saying that no living individual is immortal. Exception is there. We take the exception of unicellular organisms. So unicellular organisms are not considered immortal. So the reason behind that the unicellular organisms do not considered as immortal is that these living individuals have no natural death like amoeba, bacteria, because their parental body is distributed among the offsprings. In such unicellular organisms, the reproduction occurs by cell division, where a cell or a parent cell divides into two halves, and each half rapidly grows into an adult offspring. You must have studied about the binary fission in amoeba, where a single amoeba splits into two irregular pattern into two daughter cells. Now this parent body is splitting into two daughter cells, so that's why it is considered that the unicellular organisms are immortal and they do not undergo natural death. So it's all about the reproduction in organisms. Then there's a large diversity in the biological world, and each organism has evolved its own mechanism to multiply and produce the offsprings. The organism's habitat, its physiology. Habitat means the place where a living individual used to live. So the living individual's habitat, its physiology, and the several other factors contribute to the type of the reproduction an organisms undergo. When organism is produced by a single celled um, parent with or without the involvement of the gamete formation, it is called as asexual reproduction. And when there is involvement of two parents having opposite sex participate in the process of reproduction that also involves fusion of male and female gamete, then it is called as sexual reproduction, which means there are two types of reproduction in nature, that is asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. Now let's discuss about the general difference between sexual and the asexual reproduction. The sexual reproduction involves participation of two different parents. That means sexual reproduction becomes biparental reproduction, whereas the asexual reproduction involves the involvement of a single individual parent. So it becomes a uniparental reproduction. The next difference is that in case of sexual reproduction, there is formation of sex organs in two different sexes, but in case of asexual reproduction, the process involves no sex organs, or it is a type of reproduction which is without the formation of sex organs. This is the second difference. Now the next difference is that in case of sexual reproduction, the type of the cell division that involves is meiosis, which occurs all the time of the reproduction. While in case of the asexual reproduction, the type of involvement of reproduction is mitosis, and it do not involve meiosis. Next major difference, I hope you know about the difference between meiosis and mitosis. Meiosis involves the formation of the haploid cells, whereas mitosis involves formation of the diploid cells. Now the next difference is that in case of sexual reproduction, it requires the process of fertilization or fusion of two opposite gametes, male and the female gamete, which leads to the production of a zygote. They both fuse and results in the production of the zygote. While in asexual reproduction, there is no fertilization, because hence there is no formation of the gamete, so there will be no fertilization, and due to the lack of the fertilization, there will be formation of no zygote. Clear? The next difference is that the individual produced due to the sexual reproduction, they exhibit the genetic variation, a very important phenomenon that leads to the inheritance and evolution. So the individuals that are produced by the sexual reproduction, they show genetic variation, and which is result of the meiosis, and here the individuals are different from either of the two parents. While in case of the asexual reproduction, which do not involve meiosis and no fusion of gametes and no fertilization is there, the offsprings are genetically identical to their parents, and they are basically known as clones because they are morphologically as well as genetically similar to their parents, morphologically as well as genetically similar to their parents, right? Now the last main difference between the sexual and the asexual reproduction is that the sexual reproduction is rather a slow method of multiplication of individual, while as the asexual reproduction is a quick method of multiplication. Therefore, this method is mainly opted by the plant breeders. All the plant breeders, they follow asexual reproduction for the multiplication of their crops.